everyone, and welcome to Ready, Set, Action. This is your weekly guide to navigating the world of business growth. I'm Kristina Witmer, a marketing veteran, and I'm joined by Debra Horowitz. She is a talent leader. Each week, we speak with industry leaders to bring you actionable tips and insights specifically designed for small business owners and growth leaders. Anyway, welcome, Will, to you. Good to see you. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then we have a few questions for you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, by the way. I'm really grateful. I have come from an IT background, predominantly IBM, and I was in sales for about 30 years and an entrepreneur now, but I recently, in the last year, branched out into mental health coaching. I come from an industry that is extremely stressful. I know all industries are really stressful, but cybersecurity, if you read the news, there's a lot of feedback on, how stressful the industry is and how people need help. But I also came from alcoholism, anxiety, depression, and hid all those symptoms, or at least hid them the best I could for years. And, looked like I had it all together, and I didn't. I was a mess. And I discovered that so many people are in the same situation, and even much worse than me, but it's really in your head. And even when I did get sober 5.5 years ago, I still wasn't entirely happy. So it was on a mission for me to figure out why that is. And I discovered some things that I wanted to bring to others to help them. And that's the mission.
That's great. I can't wait to hear more because, we'll talk a little bit about tips you might have for business owners and other leaders. But when you share your personal journey, I really appreciate you sharing because it really connects, I think. So.
My goal, Kristina and Deb, is I will share anything if it's going to help somebody, period. I think I wouldn't be able to do this in my 30s because I had that ego and I was scared. I had lived in fear. Now that I'm older, I don't really care nearly as much.
Makes sense.
It's so funny. I think after you turn that corner between 40 and 50 years old.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, I am just going to be my authentic self.
And I've said that a number of times. Authentic self is an amazing way to put that.
That's so true. And when you talk about stresses, I think, to your point, every role has its own level of stress, right? As a business owner or a business leader, wearing a lot of hats, in our SMB world. And I'm curious, with all of the years of sales experience that you've had, how do you see, those skills kind of translating into your, leadership coaching, and how are you utilizing those effectively?
Boy, that question could have a number of answers. So I'll just, start with a few of them. So being in sales for 30 years, you've really seen it all. And you've seen how to react and how not to react, and wish you had reacted a lot differently, but that's how you learn. So it's really applying those lessons, to leaders and future leaders, and pointing out that there's reasons that we react the way we react, and we can do things to combat that and, react in a more healthy manner. And so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as far as how that translates to others, is that I live in their shoes. I may not have. So, for example, in cybersecurity, I may not have been a technical person or on the perform side, but I've seen what it does to people and the stress that they're under, and the reason they react the way they react with their vendors, because they are just like, it's so intense. So, I can apply that as well, that I have empathy, and I've stood in their shoes. I can appreciate it. And that's why when I post, Deb, I really try to post with a lot of emotion and feeling, because that's what gets to people, because they feel it in their stomach and they feel it in their chest. And that's the person I want to help.
I have a question on that point too. Do you find that most people can see that there's an issue or there's a problem, or they can't see it till?
No,
Yeah.
Kristina, that's a brilliant question. Most people, I like to say it, you're in the eye of the hurricane. You can't see these things.
Yeah.
You've got to get away and have maybe somebody point you in a way to say, look, you got to take a step back and look at you from a higher level, higher perspective. And it takes courage to do that. And it takes courage to recognize that you need some help. I think a lot of people just get sick of it or just sick of living this way. It's an epidemic. And while there's a lot of horrible issues that's going on in the United States and worldwide, that's never going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. It's how we react to those situations, how we learn to live with those situations and not try to mask them,
Mm-hmm.
but live that feeling. And I'm talking from the heart, because I still go through it. I went through a traumatic experience late last year, and if I didn't have the tools I had today, it would have been a very dire situation for myself.
Yeah. Well, since you brought that up too, I'd love to hear, can you elaborate a little more about the tools or the key components of your wellness programs and how they might benefit a person or a group?
Yes. So what I discovered is something called positive intelligence, and I became a mental health coach. And so the first thing I want to say is everybody's different. And my coaching is more than just positive intelligence. It's what I would call bespoke coaching, because I can, coach in a myriad of ways. But what positive intelligence is, it's actually pretty simple. It's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, but it puts you in your right frame of mind. It gets you from thinking negative thoughts or being ruled by your saboteurs, the voices in your head, and gets you into more of a sage mindset, a more calm, rational mindset, where you're thinking more clearly, you're thinking more objectively, you're thinking from what we just talked about earlier, that higher level, versus being in the eye of the hurricane in react mode, which is a horrible way to live. And I've lived that way 80% of my life. I liken it to the 80-20 rule. So I would like to flip the script for all of us and live 80, positively, and 20, with, some issues. We're human beings. We're never not going to have it, but we can certainly live in a more positive, frame of mind. And it involves exercises, and it involves talking it through with someone. But what made the big difference for me was something called PQ exercises. I've always been into meditation, but I typically get distracted. And what PQ exercises do is that and it stands for positive intelligence, PQ. Sorry for the acronym. Still an IT guy.
Thank you for that.
So what you do is you just do a series of exercises while you're in the midst of some things. Rubbing your fingers together is one. Having your feet touch the floor would be one. Like, you can start rubbing your palms together. And you typically would do that for 3 minutes, and you typically do that while you're in meditation. So once you start to feel more comfortable with the process and you see it's making a difference, you can increase it to about a half an hour a day, and it works wonders. The reason I think a lot of others that have my ADD, forgot to mention that, they take to it like a duck to water, because they're fidgety naturally. So this takes that thing that you're criticized for, at least I was, fidgetiness, and turns it into a positive experience. And it works well. And I typically, in seminars and such, do a coaching session on that. And anybody that's listening to this podcast, I will offer a free coaching session to take them through that.
Great. We'll post that in the comments too, so they can get to your site and everything, or how to access you. So.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about a lot of times you hear female executives talk about the imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's so much of a thing for men, but I'm sure there must be some common challenges across, both sides, that you've kind of, stumbled upon. And I'm curious as to how do your training courses kind of address some of those common challenges, or if you can identify what a few of those are.
It's interesting you bring up female executives having imposter syndrome, because that's a big hot button with me in terms of, for cybersecurity in particular, having more women in leadership roles, especially as a CISO, that really needs to get fixed. So, I love promoting Wix as much as I can. But imposter syndrome is not just for female executives, it's for everybody. I'm probably the best example of imposter syndrome in terms of how I've felt. When I got into the coaching business, I'm not certified as a coach. Don't need to be certified as a coach. It's like I've lived it, done it, and have taken other, or courses to, help me on this new journey. But imposter syndrome happens all the time because you're listening to the negative feedback in your head. You're listening to what I say are the imposters, or excuse me, your saboteurs. And that is a common thing with people. It's just because they haven't been given good enough feedback. They don't love themselves enough. They're not confident in, their abilities for whatever reason. It's probably feedback. So what I do is just talk them through that. It's about awareness. Everything that I talk about, everything is about awareness. And once you start to develop awareness of these patterns and why you're thinking, say, or having imposter syndrome, I have my clients write that down, and then we go over it. And once you start writing those things down, say, oh, I'm not good enough to do this. Well, you just write that down. And then we're going to go through it and say, why? Why were you thinking that? Why were you thinking it at that particular time? And why would you think this about yourself? It's all getting to of why these thoughts occur, and then learning, how to work with them. They're going to come up, but they'll come up a lot less frequently. And it's also how you deal with those thoughts when they come up.
I think that's helpful, especially I think it's helpful for people to talk about it and hear about it, because it's helpful to know that it's not just them, right? It's common. It happens at different times. So that can be, I'm sure, empowering as well. So,
yeah.
So I'm a little curious, and I don't know if you've done a lot of work, but I know you've sort of touched on some of these areas. But when you look at HR leaders or people who foster employee growth, or, that kind of talent, anything that you see, different with your approach, or how you might encourage them to sort of gain these skills or actually put them into action?
That is about awareness, and that's really tier 2 of my mission. Predominantly, I'm working with clients, but the next goal is to work with, organizations, in particular sales organizations, and educate them on that. So there's different things that we do there, but it's really starting to work with HR leaders and making them aware of the different programs that they have access to. That is a difficult position to be in. Regarding HR,
Mm-hmm.
and it's figuring out what message they need. What do they need help with? Diversity and inclusion is obviously a hot topic, and now it's even more. What are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do? And it's really on the company to make that part of their culture and continue to educate them on why that's so freaking important.
Mm-hmm.
Betters your hand.
Yeah.
The more diversity you have, the better your hand's going to be, because it's going to bring a dynamic skill set.
And I assume with HR leaders and any managers of people in general, there are things they should do in their day-to-day to support other people, so that, they can, if somebody on their team may have imposter syndrome, they may not know right away, but there might be things to that they could do or say to encourage their growth? Is that true?
Absolutely. And it's also a culture thing with companies, because take the temperature. What's your company morale like right now? I mean, be proactive. Don't wait until there's a disaster. Just start taking the temperature of the employees and head a problem off at the pass. And all you have to do is walk around. Unless it's in remote positions, it's a bit different, but maybe schedule some calls here and there, and just encourage honest feedback. That's the other thing you're dealing with as an HR person. People are scared to give their feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an epidemic as well. They're gonna, I don't want to say lie, but they're not going to necessarily be completely transparent because they're scared they will lose their job.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen that happen so many times in the sales environment where, a sales rep doesn't want to say, hey, I don't know how to overcome this obstacle, or I don't know, X. And they're afraid to say that in front of their manager because their manager might, put them on a performance improvement plan the following day, so it sounds like it's about creating a culture that is where dialogue is open, and it's okay to bring, our strengths and our weaknesses, right?
a big reason I'm out of corporate America is everything you just said. Everything. I was scared to death to say something to people, and I'm usually not that type of person. And it takes extreme courage, but honestly, you can't do it until you work for a company that demonstrates what you just said. And I know there are companies out there, but there's not nearly enough. And if you want to keep your employees and keep them happy and really encourage growth, because unless you know what you're doing wrong, you're not going to do anything better.
Right.
You're going to just live in freaking fantasy land.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of these leaders want. They want to live in fantasy land, and because they're measured on, employee satisfaction. And it's like, all right, well, who messed this survey up for me? So those were, these have all been great points.
Yeah, I'm curious. Leadership coaching is something that I think has just boomed over the last 10 years, 15 years, right? And there's so many different types of leadership coaching. So where do you see the state of that as a profession right now? And where do you see that going? And then also I'll add a third part to it. How do companies know which leadership coach they should be choosing?
That's I'm going to answer the last one first.
Okay.
They don't know. In many cases, that they're going to have to do their due diligence. They're going to have to get referrals. They're going to have to interview the people, and they're also, in my opinion, they have to be made uncomfortable. You want a coach that's going to make you uncomfortable. That's it. Unless you're going to grow, unless you want this is, like I said, fantasy land. But I think leadership coaching is vital. A lot of why it's vital is things that you just said, and I'm going to bring leadership coaching into just mental health coaching or sales coaching in general. You're going to have a hard time talking to somebody you work with or your manager about your fears and concerns until we see this paradigm shift. And that's why it's good to have a coach or somebody like that. And is this kind of an advertisement for me a bit, maybe, but not really. I just want somebody to get help. So that's why a coach is really important, because they can share anything with that coach. No, it's going to be confidential. It's not going to go in your medical records. It's not going to go to HR. You may not even want to tell your partner. You may need to have what I, safe harbor, or just a place where, you feel comfortable sharing. So I think people are going to need more and more of those coaches until the culture changes. And everybody needs different things as well, Deb. So it's really figuring out and customizing a coaching plan for what that person's outcomes want to be. It's all about outcomes. You can put together a plan, but I really want to know, why do you feel miserable? Do you know, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel every day when you wake up? That's the biggest thing. Are you Sunday night dreading going to work? Are you living in the fear? There's an awesome song I used to listen to all the time because it was called The Fear, and that's what I was living. And I just was like, every freaking Sunday night. But Mondays, you want to wake up ready to go and happy and excited, like I get to help people today, or I get to do my dream today. And it can be in the job you have right now. It's just maybe how you're thinking about it. It's all about how you approach it and think about it.
So I want to talk a little bit about the strategic advisory. I'd love to hear a little bit about, any examples you might have of that, and maybe even how you define that, because it's could be a little broad or it could be a little nuanced. So anything, how that works to help a client achieve their goals, or maybe even figure out what their goals are.
Yeah, strategic advisory is because I come from a cybersecurity background. When I decided to leave, I wanted to work with, I would say, top tier firms or top tier vendors. So I work with Avant in that respect, so I can, bring customized solutions to, my particular clients. And I think especially in small business, people don't really have the bandwidth or capability to hire really good talent, and really don't know what they don't know, especially from a cybersecurity perspective. Yeah. So that can get you in some serious trouble. Mm-hmm. You lose your business over it. Mm-hmm. And in some cases be prosecuted. So, so that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to work with the clients that particularly I know I have a really good relationship with, and sit down with them and understand exactly what your issues are, where are you experiencing the most difficulty, and then just kind of work with them from that perspective. And that it's just about helping people in that respect. I'm a connector at heart. I love connecting others. That's I know that's the new buzzword these days, but I really, that is me in a nutshell, and somebody that loves to help others. And so I can do that from a cybersecurity perspective, especially since it could mean your business is going to be gone unless you just take at least these appropriate measures. Right. But I have really good people that I work with that I'm able to bring in for that. I'm certainly not the subject matter expert.
Oh, that's cool. So as we wind down for the session today, what type of advice do you have for small business owners that are looking to improve their leadership, improve their wellness for themselves as well as their employees?
Take stock of what you're doing. Really look at yourself in the mirror, and then also talk to some people that you do lead or you do work with, and ask for feedback. It all starts with feedback, and it all starts with awareness. And as far as coaching goes, I think, I would love to work with anybody that's on this. That'd be great. And the one thing I can promise is sending them in the right direction. If I don't feel I'm a fit, I'm going to put you in the right direction because I just want you to get help. But I think it's just figure out what you need and what outcomes you want and go from there. And lean on your referral base a bit. I think everybody knows of some good coaches out there because everybody has different needs. And so certainly that would be my advice. But as far as before you determine what you want, why do you want to be coached? What is it you're looking to accomplish? And what is it what are your end goals? And be serious about it. That's what drives me nuts. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about when like somebody asks for great advice and they get it and they do whatever.
Yeah.
Don't be that person. Don't do that. Listen to your coach. And if they're advising you, they're doing it because they care about you. They don't have a freaking agenda.
I think you just hit on maybe one of the common mistakes is probably getting some advice, but then not really following through on it. Is there any other common sort of mistakes you've seen, small business owners do that sort of sabotage the program?
Oh yeah, they don't. Well, it's kind of the same thing. They don't ask for help. So I am a poster child for that, even though I ask for help. As an entrepreneur, small business owner, you're going to freaking make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Use those mistakes as great learning experiences so you don't do it again. And then start networking with your other small business owners and get on a line or something like that because they've all experienced the same problems as you.
Mm-hmm.
We all go through the same stuff. We all have the same needs. It just might be in a different form or fashion. So just get a network or get a good people that you know that you trust and that you share advice with, because like you're going to need CRM, you're going to need some security software, you're going to need letterhead printing. There's so many things that you're going to need to do. You're going to have to look at your website. Is it optimized? Is LinkedIn optimized? I mean, there's so much to learn. I've learned a lot of it, but I have so much more to learn.
I know every time you uncover something, you're like 5 more things.
So guess what? I learn every day, and you taught me a freaking great lesson as well. It's people like you I work with. It's like you gave me some really good feedback on what one of my documents looked like, and I was like, I didn't think of it that way. That is a great example.
Yeah.
So,
different perspectives. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, great. So as we sort of wind up here, Will, I'd love for you just to tell anyone listening or watching the show any best ways to reach you or to learn more about what you do.
Yeah, my website is safeharborcoaching.info, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very prominent on LinkedIn, and I'll obviously have this information for everybody. But anybody that's listening, I will offer a free coaching session, and I also would like you to look at this assessment link. It's remarkable how accurate it'll be. It takes like 5 minutes to take, and it's going to point out your saboteurs. We all have them. Some have more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Some other don't really have as many or score as many, but you all have them, and I would love to talk to anybody about them. But
okay,
my best
advice to it. Yeah, Deb and I will definitely take that too. So
yeah, that sounds very insightful.
Or scary.
Depending on what the answers are. Right?
I try to laugh about everything, but they all have it sounds like Batman villains, like the stickler, like the pleaser, the controller. It's like,
okay,
that's a way to look at it. Have a sense of humor.
Okay. Well, we'll get our superhero capes so we can conquer the villains. All right. Well, we hope the audience has found today's episode helpful. Thanks so much to Will for joining us. We appreciated all the information that you shared today. So don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Spotify, and you will never miss an update from Ready, Set, Action. So until next time.